Hey, is this thing on? Hello? Hit it again. I think it's on now. Welcome to Hiker Trash Radio, where each week, Doc will drag some colorful characters out of the woods to talk trail and Type 2 fun. If you're aspiring hiker trash, or if you're just looking to understand the hiker trash in your life, look no further. So lace up those boots, gnaw on some jerky, and settle into your 20-mile pace as we fire up the podcast from somewhere deep in the backcountry. It's time to embrace the suck.
Welcome back to another week on the trail, dirtbags, hiker trash, and of course, good smelling day hikers. Hey, I'm Doc, and this is Hiker Trash Radio. And if you like what we're doing here and help us out, take just a minute, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. And if you don't like what we're doing, well, just go ahead and keep that to yourself. All right, let's get to this week's guest, a traveler and adventurer who is out there inspiring others to get out there and get after it. Welcome to Hiker Trash Radio, Adam Hoyt. How's it going, Adam?
It's going great, Doc. Thank you so much for having me.
Now, I have to ask, if you're not tuning in on YouTube here, if you're just listening to the audio, he is in a what appears to be a very nice room. It's a great background. Is that a virtual background, or is that your actual setup?
This is the actual setup. This is our little, what would we call this? It's like a sunroom. It's our little work from home office area here in our apartment here in Boston, where I live. And what is it? Yeah, not a virtual background. It's the real background, but a nice little sunny room to see the sunlight while I work away here.
The real deal. I mean, it is late over there as we were talking, and it's well lit. I mean, it's nice and bright, and that's why I thought, hey, this is a virtual background.
Oh no, I think I just turned on all the lamps behind me.
Now, you live in Boston. Are you a sports fan?
I am, but I'm what we would call in the industry a bandwagoner. Luckily, we're from Titletown, so, Tom Brady's not here anymore, but he used to make it pretty easy to root for our team when we made it to the Super Bowl or the World Series or what have you. We're pretty good in that regard, but I would not say I watch too regularly, but it's always fun to head into Fenway and catch a game. That's always a fun time. Yeah,
now I might lose some subscribers because I'll admit that I'm a huge Tom Brady fan. Huge Tom Brady fan. Loved him in New England. Followed him, not literally followed him, but followed him and tracked his progress down with Tampa Bay. And just really sorry that he hung it up this year. I thought he had maybe 1 or 2 more years left in him.
Hopefully he'll still be kicking around, and hopefully we'll get a new Tom Brady around here to keep us happy. So we'll see.
Yeah. What are your feelings on Mac Jones?
I have none, because apparently he hasn't achieved Tom Brady status yet, as far as I'm concerned.
If you're waiting for somebody to achieve Tom Brady status, I mean,
I'm just saying, I didn't even know he was our quarterback. I believe, if he's our quarterback now.
Nice.
That's okay. How. Yeah. So don't ask me.
Okay. All right. We'll get off the sports talk here in just a second. Hey, Adam, have you had a chance to listen to the podcast before?
I have. I'll say I wasn't a listener before you reached out, but once you reached out, I am addicted to podcasts. I listen to a lot of podcasts, and so I added the podcast to my rotation and listened to a bunch of the episodes that had people on it that I was aware of and knew, and so I found it very interesting, and I really enjoyed the episodes that I did listen to. Any
favorite characters there?
So I really enjoyed Tick and Talk, the TikToking through hikers. They were very fun to listen to. And Jupiter Hikes, and there was two of those guys, Jupiter Hikes and someone else. He had a similar name, and I confused them together, but they were other YouTube hiker ones that I had knew of them before, and it was quite interesting to hear their perspective outside of their videos.
Yeah, a lot of amazing people out there doing amazing things. Love to hear their stories. Really, I mean, that's the best part about hosting a podcast like this, is I get to talk to a lot of cool people, yourself included.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's great. It must be amazing.
I think I've talked to people from all 7 continents. We actually did an interview with Anne Marie. I can't remember her last name. Anne Marie. She was an AT through hiker, but she is down at McMurdo Station on Antarctica, and she called in on the phone. I didn't get a chance to see the video. Didn't get a chance to see her face.
Oh no, you couldn't see a penguin in the background.
No. She called in from a closet in the back of the store where she was working to support the crew down at McMurdo Station.
Well, that's crazy. I think I might have even heard that episode, or I thought I heard about or maybe it was someone who'd spent time in Antarctica before. I don't know if I heard the one where they called in from there. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, pretty wild. Hey, I only ask if you've listened to the podcast because I want to make sure that you are aware of a segment that we do towards the end of every episode. It's called Hiking Hack, and that's where you'll have a chance to share some trail wisdom with our listeners to make their next outdoor experience even better. So don't be surprised when we get there.
All right. Yeah, I've been thinking, I've been mulling it over, and I can't wait to see what I get.
Okay. Now, I know you're not a thru hiker, but in all your time in the outdoors, have you picked up a trail name or a nickname?
So this is actually quite funny because I knew this going in, that this is something we do on the podcast. I brought it up with my mother, and she was tickled pink trying to come up with the name for me because I told her about the idea. She had several. She tried very hard. She came up with several ideas. She wanted to call me Silver because I have gray hair, or in my videos I always wear the green shorts, and so she wanted it to be like shorts or green shorts, something like that. At the end of the day, we didn't really settle on anything. And when your own mother's trying to do it, you're kind of like, oh, shut up, Mom. I don't want to. That's silly. But so no, I've never gotten one. I've had nicknames in sports and other things I've done growing up, but I'll let you or the listeners give me feedback if there's one that rings out to you during the podcast, or if they want to write in and tell me the name they want to give me. I'm more than willing to hear the options and what people think.
Well, Adam, I have to congratulate you because I've talked to, let's see, we're approaching episode 300. So I've talked to a lot of people on the podcast. You are the first who had his mom try and give him a trail name. So nice job.
Yeah, she loved it. She was like, oh my gosh. And like, it was so annoying the weekend she just all weekend. And I think she had too much fun, to be honest.
All right. So two things. We will try and keep an eye open or an ear open for something that comes up during the episode that maybe we can assign that as a trail name to you. And then also, whenever I'm doing an episode, I'm always on the lookout for a trail name for the episode. Right? Same kind of concept. If something unusual, something funny, something peculiar happens in the podcast, if there's an interesting turn of phrase, we have to be careful. That might end up being the episode title.
Well, all right. We'll see what happens.
Okay.
Trailblazers Toolkit.
That's right, Adam. It's time for the Trailblazers Toolkit, sponsored by the ultralight backpacking gear company 6 Moon Designs. Now, I love to talk about gear on the podcast, and I love to hear about the most important item in my guest's adventure gear. So if you're preparing for your next adventure, and I was the one providing you with all your gear, what is the one specific piece of gear you would insist on being packed? Make sure to give me all the specifics on that piece of gear and tell me why you've got to have it out there. And this could be any type of item. It could be gear, it could be apparel, it could be a luxury item, or something even beyond that. So, Adam, what is that item in your toolkit?
So I think a lot of people would joke and say it's my green shorts because apparently that's become my trademark. Literally, I've been out on the trail and people recognize me. They go, oh my gosh, it's Mr. Green Shorts himself. But really, no, those were kind of funny. I picked them out. The one thing that I definitely need to have, and it came in handy literally the day before yesterday on a hike I was doing. Even though I'm a day hiker, I wind up all the time when I'm filming my hiking videos. I think I'm going to be done at a certain time. Invariably, though, especially as we get into the fall, I ended up being on the trail longer than I thought. I am hiking out in the dark, so I always need to have my trusty headlamp. And it has saved me more times than I can remember. It is so useful to me. I don't know off the top of my head what brand I have. I honestly don't think it matters so much exactly what LED brand. It probably was just an LED one off of Amazon, but it has saved me countless times. I ended up hiking 2 hours in the dark yesterday, finished at 10 p.m. I was very upset that it took me that long, but I was so glad I had my headlamp. And what was it? I ran into another hiker who was lost, and I had to guide him out with me with the headlamp. So I was glad to have it. And that's the one I would always choose, I'd say.
Nice, nice. Now you're not sure of the brand. I know Black Diamond makes headlamps. There are a lot of different manufacturers, and I'm glad I've got a headlamp expert on the podcast finally, because there are different settings on these headlamps, right? I mean, there's the steady bright white light. There's the flashing bright white light. Then there's usually another setting where you push the button again, and it's like a red light, steady red light.
Oh, mine does not have the steady red light, but it does have the flashing. And I'll have to admit, I have never used that. I don't know why it's there. I just like my nice, big, bright white LED. And I have a second one even just in case that one fails, just as my backup to make sure I get out as it is.
Were you a Boy Scout?
No, I was
always prepared.
I was always prepared. It was in a weird thing. Maybe some of your listeners ever heard. It was this thing called Royal Rangers, which was some sort of religious version of the Boy Scouts, which I thought the Boy Scouts already was religious in a certain extent, but that's what we did. And so it was literally just like the Boy Scouts, but it was like through church. It was very, very strange.
Got it. Now, I am going to hypothesize that the red light on some headlamps is for use at night. When you got to go out, you don't need the big bright light because all you need is a little bit of light. And then also the red light may help not disturb other people who are trying to sleep. Because I know that I've been woken up in my tent by just it feels like a spotlight going across my tent.
Oh, wow.
As someone's out there kind of poking around and trying to find the bathroom.
I can imagine that. I like I said, I've not seen that in my camping one, but in some of my former days as an engineer in the factory working the overnights, we had red flashlights in the factory in order to help preserve not only our night vision, but it was like photosensitive chemicals we were working with. And so I could see certain things like that coming in handy.
Yeah, I mean, that could also be part of it, not disturbing other people, but also at the same time preserving your night vision. So you're able to see what's beyond, what's still out there beyond the little circle of light around you. That brings me to pirates. You know, you've heard the story about pirates and why they wear an eye patch. A lot of people thought it's because they were in battle and somebody lost an eye, but I've heard that they wore an eye patch because down below decks it was very dark. It was very dark, and if they had to go down in a hurry to, if they're in battle conditions, they got to go down to the cannons, down, amidships, whatever it may be, that they went down and then they switched the eye patch to the other eye, and the eye that had been behind the eye patch is already accustomed to the dark. So they have like immediate night vision.
Well, my mind is blown. You're telling me they had a real eye under the eye patch the whole time.
That's my understanding. Yes.
Oh, wow. I had no idea.
We have already ventured into some wild territory in this episode. This is great.
Hey, I always like to learn a new thing each day.
Okay. And I already have a couple of candidates for your trail name.
Oh, good.
Yes. I mean, the green shorts, I'm thinking, what's green?
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking the Hulk.
Ooh.
Right?
I like that. I do like Marvel.
Yeah. So maybe the Hulk. And then you said Royal Rangers. I mean, Royal Ranger, that just kind of jumped out at me right there.
Oh, well, I don't know about that one at this stage in my life, but we'll keep thinking.
Okay. All right. Well, let's go on to the next segment.
It's the hiking poll.
And that is poll spelled P-O-L-L with two L's, like a survey, not like the thing you hold in your hand out there. I'd like to explain that because I think I was pretty clever coming up with that whole concept, that turn of phrase. And everybody's reaction is pretty much just like yours, just deadpan.
Just like, yep.
That's right. Nobody else is really impressed with that. Just me. And you talk about your mom helping you with the trail name. I know my mom is a faithful listener, so she's nodding her head and saying, "Yeah, that was very clever, Doc. Very, very clever." Doc's mom.
Yes.
And so this is 7 questions that are all related to hiking, and it's going to help me determine, where you fall on the sanity scale, with 1 being completely insane and 100 being completely sane.
I was looking forward to this. I can't wait to see your fancy equations and math with my answers.
Okay. Yeah, it gets complicated, believe me. Yes. So these are 7 questions. It is not rapid fire. I don't want you just to give me a 1-word answer and we move on, because you need to get some explanation to help me with how I score your answer, because there are some questions I may not agree with your answer, but I mean, if you can convince me as to your line of thinking on that, that may result in some additional points for you.
Okay.
And there are some questions there is no right answer. You lose less points than the other one. So,
Oh, all right. Let's get to it then.
okay, all right. Question number one: trekking poles or no trekking poles out there?
So, at this moment in time, I am a no trekking poles person simply because it is an added thing. Most of the time when I'm hiking now, I have my camera and I'm filming it, and I carry the camera and the tripod in my hand at all times so that I can whip it out and film immediately. Having trekking pole, like I don't want to have to put the camera away and use the trekking poles and then put the trekking poles away and take up the camera. So out of convenience, and I guess throughout most of my life, I have not done the trekking poles, but there was a moment in my life where I used them and they were very helpful. Last year when I was injured, before I had my ACL reconstruction surgery, the trekking poles literally were the only thing that made me able to hike at all as a minimal amount. And so they were very useful then, but luckily I've healed up since then and I'm back to my good old no trekking poles, and I've been doing just fine, and I've been happy with how things have gone since then.
Okay, we have to hear about the ACL injury. What happened?
So it was very sudden. I guess my body decided that a 30-year-old deciding to play soccer was unacceptable, and I was just running down the field as fast as I could, and snap, pop, there goes the ACL. I didn't really know. I thought I just dislocated it at the time because even though I apparently had what they called like a clean break, like it was gone. It did not hurt nearly as much as I would have expected. And I thought I just like, oh, it's a little swollen. I like popped it. But the MRI later was like, nope, clean break, partial tear on the other thing. Oh, torn the meniscus. They're like, you almost had the trifecta. And I'm like, then how come it doesn't hurt? Like how it was very strange. It just felt unsteady. So that was last May, right after or right before Memorial Day last year. And then I had my surgery to reconstruct it in August of last year. And then I started doing my physical therapy in August. And then it was going pretty much intensely multiple times a week until I think it was either February or March when I was able to stop going regularly. And I was off the brace. And now I have, if people have seen some of my videos, in the newer videos, you see I still do wear a brace. It's more of an activity brace. It's a custom one that I only wear when I'm hiking or when I'm running or when I'm at the gym. Like 99% of my life now, I'm back to normal, going up and down stairs. And I'm just glad that I'm able to hike again as if nothing had happened. But when it first happened, it didn't really feel like I'd ever be able to get back to that point. But your body adapts, and I was able to, just put my mind to it, worked through the physical therapy and just put the time in, and I'm back at it, and it feels pretty much close to normal now.
Did you finish the soccer game?
No, I didn't. It was that painful at the time. I was out for the count for sure. And it was, if I remember correctly, the first game of the new season. And the first time I was back at soccer after COVID, like I had gone away from the social sports, and I was like, okay, I'm back at it. COVID's winded down. I'm ready to go at it. Pop, boom. And I'm like, okay, I guess I'm out of shape.
Now, Adam, some athletes like Tom Brady, they can play till they're 45, and some of us can't continue past age 30. So there's the lesson.
There is the lesson. And I basically decided now that I am my prime at the soccer days, that was back in high school. I don't need to do it anymore. I think I'm good. I don't want to let something like that prevent me from doing the thing I love now most these days, which is hiking. So I think the soccer, I'll live vicariously through someone else, hopefully in the future. But I think I'm good for now.
We could give you the trail name, ironically, of maybe TB12.
Right?
You didn't play as long as him, but it's kind of a play on the whole concept. I don't know. Just throwing it out there.
Or brace or something related to
Brace.
the leg, I'm sure.
Brace. Yes. Custom. What was it? Custom activity brace. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cab.
Now,
hiking poles. So I understand the concept that you're a busy guy out there. You are out there doing some production. You're getting the shots. You're setting up shots. You need to get it when it happens. You can't afford to take the time to put the poles down, reach in, get the camera, get the tripod out. So that kind of makes sense to me.
Well, in a weird way, though, sometimes what ends up happening is that the tripod becomes the trekking pole.
I was going to ask that.
In a weird way.
Yep.
Only what is it? If I'm crossing a stream, in some situations it helps out, or you just have to put it somewhere, and it ends up being used not ever to support the weight, but to just like set it somewhere. So it is kind of funny how that works out.
Okay. Question number 2. What's on your feet? Boots, trail runners, or do you go barefoot out there?
So I sport trail runners these days. I used to do hiking boots. I don't think I have a big opinion, though. I think it was just when I was starting to get into this, I looked at what other outdoor influencers were doing. They seemed to like the trail runners, so I tried them out, and they've been working well enough for me. I do like how easy they are when I do get in a stream crossing. They dry out quickly, and I haven't had any issues. And so I think I use Brooks Cascadia.
Yeah, those are great.
My trail runner of choice.
Those are great. Yep.
And so I'm on my third pair now, because if I was to say there was anything about them that I don't know, if maybe I need to find one that lasts a little longer, but at the same time, I feel like I hike more than the average person. So like they get a lot of miles on them, so they disintegrate seemingly quickly on me, but they seem to last one pair a year, and that's probably about right. And they seem to do well enough for me.
Now, are you a creature of habit, Adam?
I guess so. Or it's more like it works well enough, and I'm not like, I don't actively like, oh, let me try every single shoe to find the perfect one. It's just like, oh, these do the job, and they've been doing the job, so we'll just keep using them.
There's no need to change things up unnecessarily, right? I mean, if it's
right,
it's working.
Yeah. Maybe if I was one of those gear YouTubers who that was their job to do it, but that's not my thing. So I'm just like, oh, it works, good enough. Here we go.
Okay. Now, do you do overnights when you're out there?
I have not. I typically do the day hike, and then I'm off at a where I go. We have access to a family cabin, and so I usually stay there, or at an Airbnb, or somewhere like that, or at a campsite. But not. I have not actually gone backpacking where I've carried my tent with me yet.
Okay, so I'm going to change things up here. I'm going to switch up some questions that might be a little more appropriate for you. So,
all right.
I assume that when you've been out there, nature has called.
Nature has called. That is true.
Okay. So, question number 3 is going to be toilet paper, bidet, leaves, or snow, or something else.
Or snow.
Yeah, that was an answer. That I had to add that in because that was an answer somebody gave me one time.
Someone gave you. I guess
that will wake you up.
Usually I'm on top of things. I guess I usually try and am well, how shall we say, scheduled enough that luckily the trails I do, they have the facilities before the trail. I'm able to take care of the business. In the rare off chances that it has happened, I'm usually not prepared with any sort of thing, because I don't ever plan for it to happen, because it should happen at the end. So I guess the answer is leaves, because that is all that is available at the time.
Or you come back missing a shirt sleeve.
Exactly.
All right. Question number 4. Let's see. Rank the following in your order of preference. 1 mile severe uphill, 1 mile severe downhill, or a 20-mile road walk.
I'll take a 1 mile uphill. I think uphill is always easier than going downhill if it's steep. And a road walk is extremely boring, and I would not like that. Like, it would be easy, but like, why am I there? I would try and find someone to give me a ride at that point. But the uphill can be fun. Okay,
so uphill is number 1. What's number 2?
Oh, number 2. I guess then I would pick the downhill and then the road walk third, because like, what am I doing? That's not hiking at that point.
I think that's the correct order. Yeah, I don't find many people who agree with me on that, but I think that is the correct order. That's well done.
Well, just to give you an example, Doc, one of the hikes I did and I filmed was the Wiley Range Trail. And so we'll probably get into this a little later in the podcast. But one of the hiking lists that I'm doing is called the Terrifying 25. And the Wiley Range Trail was one of the trails on that list, and one of the few rules that the creator of the list stipulates is that because that hiking list is not summit specific or mountain specific, it's trail specific. Your one rule is you must hike the entire trail, regardless of if the terrifying element that's got it on the list is only at the beginning. Doesn't matter. You have to hike the entire named trail. So in this instance, the Wiley Range Trail, it was on the list because of ladders, which are at the steep part at the beginning. But the Wiley Range Trail goes across the entire range, so many miles past the terrifying element. And so I had to hike the entire mountain range of that, of not Wiley, Mount Willie, Field, and Tom. And because I hiked all around the range, my option was presented to me to hike down Mount Tom and then walk back along the road to where I started. But because I thought that was so boring, I'm like, I'd rather hike completely back across the entire range that I already did and do it that way, because I thought that'd be more interesting than taking the easier way and walk the road and be bored.
Wow, you have really piqued my interest. I can't wait to get to the Terrifying 25. I have not heard of this before. I've heard of all kinds of other types of challenges. Terrifying 25, first time.
Well, I can't wait to tell you all about it, because that seems to be my bread and butter these days.
Nice. All right. What question was that? Is that question 4? Yes. Question number 5. What's on your hat when you're out there exploring? Is it a ball cap, floppy hat, straw hat, sun hoodie, or no hat at all?
So majority of the time, especially in New Hampshire, on a regular hiking day, I do wear a sun hoodie because I'm usually in the trees here. We have a lot of tree cover, and we do have mountains that have above tree line. But for the vast majority of the time, it's not really needed. So there's a lot of shade. So I just wear the sun hoodie if I need to. But on the instances, like I've done hiking in Arizona or on Cape Cod, where there's where you don't have the tree cover, in those cases, I use a big old floppy hat. And that's my preference, because I just want to be shaded and covered.
Got it. All right. Question number 6. Is life better above or below the tree line?
I've been trying to think. I knew that this is a question you ask, and I've been trying to think that, because we do have above the tree line and below. And the problem with above our tree line is it is always crappy. And if you're above the tree line, whatever crap is happening, it's going to happen. And those trees are very necessary to avoid that, the rain and the snow and the clouds. But I guess since we don't have too much tree, I guess I choose above the tree line, because our views are much nicer up there. But I guess I fair weather above the tree line, because I've been there when it's like not good if it's above the tree line here, if our weather goes bad, which has been basically all summer this year.
That was a bit of a roller coaster of an answer there. I didn't know where we were going to end up.
I wasn't sure where I was going to end up, because I've been going back and forth for days about that since I knew that was the possibility.
You just took us through your whole thought process right there.
Yeah.
Okay. And question number 7, when you're out on a big hike, what's more important, pack weight or luxury items?
I think I have to choose luxury items at this point, because whenever I'm out there, it's because I'm filming. And so my pack is always heavier than it needs to be, because it has all the stupid camera gear that I need to bring. Because people ask me, Adam, what do you bring in your pack? Because they want like advice on what to bring. I'm like, you don't specifically want to know what's in my pack, because I have like, oh, you don't need a drone. You don't need a GoPro. You don't need a backup GoPro. You don't need all these extra batteries. And my pack ends up being much heavier than it needs to be, because I'm like carrying all the stuff that otherwise you wouldn't need. So I guess I have to choose luxury items.
And so what is the weight of your pack when you're going out?
I've never weighed it, but it is heavy, especially because it's like just day hikes. I don't filter my water. I just bring my water, so that I end up having all these extra water bottles. I'm sure a lot of people would be like, what are you doing? I know a friend of the podcast, Kyle, hates hiking, has this whole thing where he hates Nalgene bottles. And oh no, I bring like 2 Nalgene bottles and another water bottle. all this water. People will probably think I'm funny, especially I forget. Was it Jupiter? The guy who had a 6-pound base weight for the PCT or whatever he did. I'm like, that's crazy. Yeah. I carry too much stuff, and I have the backpack rashes to prove it, I guess.
Yeah, and I think there is some strategy about not knowing how much your pack weighs when it's that heavy. It's like, okay,
yeah, then I'd probably care more and freak out.
If I know the weight, I'm just gonna focus on that. I'm gonna be obsessed with why am I carrying so much weight? Or rather, it's ignorance is
ignorance is bliss.
Ignorance is bliss. That's right. All right, hey Adam, stand by. I've got to do some math here. Take off my shoes. Got to use all 20 digits to do the calculation here. We got to carry the 3. I got to multiply that by root 5. Gonna divide by pi, and I'm gonna adjust for the one missing shirt sleeve when you came back from your last hike. And I came up with a score of 63.
A 63.
63. I mean, that's 13 points north of the midline, so that's good.
Oh, I'll take that.
Yeah, it's 63 to the good, not the other way.
Yes.
What would your mom say your score should be?
She would say much lower because she does not like the fact that I hike alone as much as I do. And so she would give me probably a 0 because I should not be doing that.
All the way to the bottom, a 0.
And it bothers. She tells me all the time, every single time. And it's just like, that's how it goes.
Now tell us why you hike alone.
So
you can't find anybody crazy enough to do what you're doing, or you just,
you could say a little bit of that. Mostly it's because a lot of the times when I'm out hiking, I am filming it in a style which a lot of people would say is derivative of Craig Adams, which is where I got my inspiration to start my filming. It's a lot of setting up the camera and then walking away from the camera and getting the camera. And basically, when it comes to me filming a hike, if I'm doing one where one hike, one video, instead of say like a top 10 video, you don't need as much footage. It actually makes it a lot easier because you don't have to record as much. But if you're doing the ones like, for example, this week I've been doing where you hike one hike and you film the one hike, it can make it take 1.5 to maybe 2 times longer than if you were just hiking it normally. And I'm very self-conscious. I do not, asking one of my friends, hey, do you want to go for a hike? Oh yeah, I need to we're going to film it. And it's going to take all day. And it could be 13 hours. And it's like, it shouldn't take that long. That's not usually how it goes, but that's like the reality of filming it. It's a lot harder or tedious, or I don't know. When it's just me by myself, I can take as long as I need to take. I can wait for the people to go. I can wait for the damn cloud to go away, to be sunny, or to come back to be shady, to get the shot that I want, or the wind to blow the leaves from the tree so that it looks like the fall leaves are falling, and I waited 5 minutes for that to happen. But with another person, your friend, you don't want to inconvenience them. And it's even if they're like, no, Adam, you don't have to worry about that, still in the back of your mind, you know that you feel like you're wasting someone else's time. And I never like that feeling. And I know when it's just me, I can take as long as I need to take, and it gets, whatever needs to get done can get done.
So it's one of two things. Either you're very considerate, and what you told me is the absolute truth, or your very close friends have been out there with you and have told you, Adam, never again am I doing this. We should have been done by 1 o'clock. Yeah.
Yes. Well, at least one of them was like, Adam, this was actually good. It was the only way I was able to actually hike with you, but because we went so slow, I'm out of shape, and I was actually able to keep up with you. And we went at my pace because we had to go at the filming. And so I thought that was actually funny. I never thought about that.
That's awesome. All right. Hey, before we get too far down the trail, let's back up a little bit. Tell us about your background. Where'd you grow up? I know it sounds like you played some soccer in your youth. What other sports and hobbies were you involved with? And how did you get involved in the outdoor adventure cult?
So I grew up in a town in New York called Rochester. I'm from Rochester, New York. It's the 3rd largest city in New York. What is the funniest thing about that story is I did grow up.
Wait. Rochester is the largest city in New York?
3rd largest.
Oh, okay. All right. I thought
after New York and Buffalo.
I was going to say,
and
there's some other kids there. Okay.
Yeah, it's up in upstate New York, over an hour past Buffalo towards the east, in between Buffalo and Syracuse. and right on the shores of Lake Ontario. So we didn't really have a lot of mountains directly near Rochester, but growing up, what I think people think is funniest about the story is even though I grew up in upstate New York, I've technically never actually hiked in the Adirondacks, which makes no sense, or the Catskills for that matter, because we had family in Massachusetts, and then my family had cabins and places in New Hampshire. So growing up, all of my hiking that it was introduced to me was done at a very early age in New Hampshire's White Mountains, hence why I'm like in this area now, and that's where I usually go myself because it's the closest to where I live now. But we were going hiking, gosh, I was younger than 10. I don't remember. I think I've seen a picture where you could say that my first hike, I must have been like 1 or 2 because I was in one of those backpack carriers. But then a few years later, when I was able to hike myself, we had like, it would maybe be that one vacation of summer where like hiking would be involved in that like summer vacation to the New Hampshire White Mountains. And then we continued, and I just enjoyed it a lot. Like, we're talking my first time summiting Mount Washington, I was 12 with my family. We barely survived. It took 7 hours one way because we were so exhausted when we got to the summit. Barely. We paid to take the shuttle down because our family was that like my brother was throwing up. Everyone, it was a fiasco. I would not recommend doing what we did. We were not prepared for what we were in store for.
You did the hard part. You did the hard part, and then you took the shuttle down.
And then we took the shuttle down. But luckily, I've hiked it. I'll have to count exactly how many times. I think 6 or 7 times now. So I've no worries, everyone. I've hiked it down since then. But that's the sort of thing we were doing that growing up, and then. So I was always into it, and I would maybe go once every few months, especially when I started living in Boston. I would go up a few times a summer to go hiking. When I would go traveling different places, I'd always look for a trail or something to go hiking. I used to live in Tucson, Arizona for a little while, so I would go hiking around Tucson. They have a few mountains over there. But then it was only in the pandemic once in the pandemic that I started my hiking YouTube channel and that sort of thing, where I started really joining the cult full time, if you want to call it that, and really like day hiking on the regular, like every weekend, every other weekend. So it's definitely ramped up since then. Got
it. Now, what are you doing to pay the bills these days? Does your social media and YouTube, does that earn enough for you, or do you have
No, it's interesting. So up until January, I was an engineer. I did that for a very, very long time.
Like on a train?
And no, like a mechanical engineer or a manufacturing engineer. So I did that for a good while, but maybe it was the ACL break that finally made me realize like life is short, and I'd rather do. I had started this thing and it had been taking over my life, and I was just obsessed with making the videos and wanted to do more of a full-time thing. And luckily, as an engineer, I had the savings that I had saved up. And so I decided, if we want to call this my sabbatical, it's my sabbatical where I took a step back from engineering. I'm doing more of the hiking things. Things are starting to take off, but as you know, maybe in the podcast world, like it doesn't. You have to get to a certain size before it starts paying the bills. And I'm not there yet, but I take odd jobs and I do other things. Like this summer, I was a student tour director for student tours in the month of June and stuff like that. And so that was one thing I was doing to pay the bills. But otherwise, at least for the summer, I've been living off those savings. And then when it comes to the fall, I'm sure I'll take up a bunch more odd jobs and go from there and see how it goes.
Got it. Now, I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall with that talk with your boss in your engineering career, where you go in and say, "Hey, you know what? I've got to step away. I've torn my ACL. It's just not going to work anymore."
No. See, I stayed on.
It's taken me out. I can't do it.
No, I stayed at the job because I needed their health care. And so it was only after I was healed from the ACL that I was like, I'm not working here anymore. And then they were probably a little upset by that.
Smart man. Very good. All right. Hey, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to hear from the advertisers. We're going to pay some bills, not many bills, but we're going to pay some bills.
Some bills.
Some bills, a few, a couple, maybe one. I don't know. And when we come back, we're going to get into some stories of your adventures. And we want to talk about your social media and your YouTube content. So stay tuned for that. We'll be right back. And welcome back. We were talking to Adam Hoyt, aka the Hulk, maybe, aka TB12. I don't know. We're still looking for a trail name. We heard a little bit about your background. We heard some references to a YouTube channel and filming out there and lots of camera equipment. Let's talk about your YouTube channel. If someone tunes in to is it Adam Hoyt, or what's the name of it? And
so yeah, when you get to that part near the end where you'll be like, oh, plug all your socials. I'm really bad. I don't have good brand synchronicity, if we want to call it that, where the YouTube channel, the Instagram, the TikTok, they all have different names, which is probably not what it should be, but it all is derivative of myself, which is the YouTube channel is just called Adam Hoyt, my name, and the one that my dad was really insistent that I should have called it, which is what the TikTok is called. It's called Hoyt Hikes. He really thought the YouTube should have been called Hoyt Hikes, but I went with just my name because I wanted to give myself the opening in case I wanted to ever branch out beyond just hiking. I didn't want to just pigeonhole it that way, but who knows? So I just call it my name, Adam Hoyt. That's me.
And that's Hoyt spelled Hoyt.
Hoyt. That's right.
Hoyt. And what kinds of material can they find on your social?
So what you can find, what I'm working on now and what I've done in the past is when I first started my channel, I started it in the pandemic, and I was an engineer. I was working as an engineer, but as some people might know, depending on your engineering role, it could be not the most creative of fields. At least the segment of engineering I was in, it was a lot of paperwork and stuff like that. And so I was unhappy, and at least not feeling so fulfilled, and I needed a more creative outlet. So in the pandemic, when we had all the extra time, I decided to create a YouTube channel, and it provided me that creative outlet that I was lacking, and it really helped increase my fulfillment in my life and really raised my mood during the pandemic. For whatever reason, I decided, YouTube channel would be fun. I should make one. And then it became, okay, what should it be about? And then I'm like, I like to hike. Like, I wouldn't mind having an excuse to do more of that. And what I alluded to earlier, in the White Mountains and in the East Coast in general, we're very much about our hiking lists, peak bagging, if you want to call it. The day hikers, we all about bagging the lists. The most famous list here around New England and in New Hampshire is called the New Hampshire 48 4,000 footers, which is there's 48 mountains above 4,000 feet, which is typically the tallest mountains are around here, which some people deride and call very short, but whatever, I don't care. Our prominence is still very large at times. And so I was like, I have hiked a few of those. As we mentioned, when I was 12, I did Mount Washington, which is the tallest one, but I never did like a deliberate effort to hike all of them. And I have nothing to do now. It's the pandemic and I want to make this channel. I know I will hike those 48 and I'll record myself doing it. And there'll be like guides for people who want to do them themselves, and maybe see what they're like and this, that, and the other thing. And then because I was an engineer, I didn't know how to make videos. I kind of just typed hiking into YouTube to see what came up. And when you typed at that time in 2020, when you typed hiking into YouTube, the first person that would appear was Craig Adams. He does like silent hiking videos. And as far as I was concerned, I was just like, okay, this seems to be what people want. He does not hike in New England. He does multi-day backpacks. I can do day hikes. He doesn't post that often. I could post more often. So my thought was, and it seemed easy enough to do the way he was doing it. It wasn't a lot of production. It was just like you walk away from the camera, you walk back, blah, blah, blah. And so I tried doing that. And it's like, you can only get so far imitating someone. And it is a lot harder building something from scratch and just like And so that's where it started. And so I always, and so that was like the plan, was that I was going to film the hikes, my New Hampshire 48. And then as the year went on, in the winter, there's also the 52 with a view up here. Those are ones that are shorter. They're a little easier, and they have good views. So I'm like, oh, those will be good. Like, I'll just film all of them and I'll randomly do them as I go. And then somewhere along the line, I discovered the Terrifying 25, which is another one of these hiking lists. And once I started filming those, it seemed to be the ones that people liked the most, in terms of they were the more exciting videos, because instead of it just being a mountain with a summit as the focus of the video, like getting to the summit and finishing, maybe there's what we would call a quote unquote terrifying element on the trail that could also be a focal point, or a more like a moment of excitement in the middle of the hike before you get to the summit. And I found them much more fun. They were the ones that also gave me a lot of fun hiking and making the videos. And so as it's come along, I've transitioned into focusing on those, because sometimes people even find, I think, enjoyment of those are really hard hikes. I'm never going to do them, but I would like to see them, versus like the standard person who could do all of the other standard hikes that I do up here in New Hampshire. But then I also like transitioned into doing like top 10 hiking videos. Like one of the best ones I've done has been like the top 10 waterfalls in Massachusetts. And that was really fun to do. And I like doing those sort of videos as well.
Wow, Adam, we covered a lot of ground right there. There's a lot to unpack. So
yes, I tend to ramble. So let me let you pick it apart, and I can dive deeper on different aspects.
First thing I want to comment on is finding TikTok as an outlet as an engineer. Is engineering TikTok, is that a pretty spicy place to dwell in?
So that's actually, so like, I don't know, because I don't actually use TikTok. I just make them, and I only started making them recently. I mostly because I'm old. I'm 30. I'm a boomer, as some people would consider in the TikTok world. I grew up on YouTube. I consume YouTube, and so when I started all of this, I made YouTube videos because that's what I knew how to make and I was comfortable with, and I did not have the time or bandwidth to do Reels, TikTok, all of these other things. But a lot of people would tell me, "Hey, you should do that." And I'm like, well, I don't consume it. I don't really know how to do it. But anyways, this summer, because I like stepped back and had more time, I finally started delving into it. And that has been what has been giving me my most success recently, especially on Instagram, has been literally taking my YouTube videos and cutting them down to TikTok length and posting them again. And so I've just been going through my back catalog this summer, and they've been going much more than any of the other. They're much more than when they were long YouTube videos. Let me tell you that. And so
I think that's
I've been learning that.
That's a commentary on our attention spans.
I think that's the commentary on the culture for sure.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I was just trying to be funny. I thought engineering TikTok was a funny concept, but you outdid me.
Well, it is a funny concept. I'm sure it is. I've never been on it. I've been only on hiking.
The
TikTok.
title of this episode, the trail name of this episode might be Boomer TikTok with Adam Hoyt.
Yeah. But it's been interesting trying to learn that, and that's only been a recent thing I've been trying.
Okay. Now you say that doing the Terrifying 25 videos might be more appealing because people like to watch hard things that they might not ever do, and I think that accurately reflects the success of the Barkley Marathon documentaries that have been made. Have you watched those?
I have not. I think I listened to the episode where you talked to someone who did it. Is that one where you have to like write an essay and then they only let so many people in, and then this and that? It's like in Tennessee.
Yes, that's the one.
Yeah, so I did listen to that episode.
Yeah. If you have time this week, I know you're a busy guy, but if you have time this week, go to YouTube, watch either the Race That Eats Its Young or Where Dreams Go to Die. Those are the two most popular documentaries on the Barkley Marathons. You will not be disappointed. It is not time wasted. This is a phenomenon. Yes.
I maybe I'll have time Friday, because what is it? It'll be nice for hiking Thursday, but it's going to rain Friday, and then it'll be nice for hiking Saturday. So I'll be needing something to do bored in New Hampshire while I wait for the weather to get better so that I could go hiking again. So maybe I'll check that out. Okay.
You may become as obsessed as I am with the Barkley Marathon. So there you go.
Well, I understand it because that I feel like that taps into like I think that's why that what was it, the Alex Honnold documentary did so well, because it's the same thing, free soloing Capitan. Like I'm never gonna do that, but like those people who do.
Yeah, and
not that I'm on his level nearly at all, but it is fun.
We all knew the outcome of free solo, but I was still watching through my it was just terrifying. All right.
As some people might say, actually terrifying, because that's a lot of what. So I'll back up in terms of the terrifying 25. I'll sum it up. So, it's a hiking list in New Hampshire and New England. We're all about our hiking lists. What's actually, like I said, we have our New Hampshire 48, which is our tallest mountains. We have the 52 with a view, which is for views in New Hampshire. And then there's a bunch of other ones where like the Adirondacks has the 46ers, which are the 46 mountains over 4,000 feet. And I think the Catskills has the 3,500 club. So we're obsessed.
There's a lot of numbers out there.
There's a lot. No, it's even worse. New York is crazy. Like you could be a Lake George 12-ster or a Tupper Lake Triad or a they have all these like funny names for them. Oh, a Saranac Lake Sixer. And they go crazy with it. And there's like the New England 67 and the New England 115, which is really 111. It's like really strange, all the numbers they come up with, but like people like to do it. And so the terrifying 25 came up, and the way this list works, a lot of those other lists, like I said, are related to summits. Like it doesn't matter which trail you take, as long as you make it to the summit or the viewpoint, you've completed the list. The terrifying 25 is an interesting list as far as I'm concerned, because it's not literally a list of 25 things. It's a list of 20 things and a list of, I think it's 14 that you have to pick 5. So it's like a list of 20 trails that you must complete that are like the harder trails.
Got it.
And then you have the optional 14, and then you just have to pick 5 out of the 14 to make 25.
Are the 14 so difficult that that's why you only have to choose 5?
No. It's the opposite. They're the easier ones.
Oh, got it. The 20,
and so
20 are terrifying.
Right. And so it's like the required and the optionals. Like they wouldn't, like if you miss one of the optionals, it's okay. But if you miss one of the required, it's like, no, that's required homework for completion. And so
I understand. Now, before we get to the terrifying aspect, or some of the terrifying aspects of those 20 trails, I want to just piggyback on what you were saying. All the numbers out there in New York, the 25 and the 46 and the 52. I want to make a challenge right now to everybody who's listening to become an HTR 300er.
Ooh, what would that stand for?
Well, HTR, of course, is Hiker Trash Radio, and 300 represents the number of episodes we'll have at the end of season 6. So I challenge you to start at the very beginning and hang in there because it gets better. Because very early on, I didn't know what I was doing. I was just making it up as I went along. I had heard a podcast, and so I was gonna do something like this. And so,
then the question for you is,
you get to tune in for the evolution of the podcast. You see how it kind of developed over the seasons to where it is now. And it's still evolving. I'm always thinking of new things to try. So,
well, then I think the question is, Doc, is for the people who make it all the way to the end, will there be a fun little sticker or a patch for them to get?
Oh, yes. If you can submit verification of all 300 episodes, you will get free stickers and maybe even a free shirt. I don't know. I mean, that's an accomplishment.
That is an accomplishment. That is not usually a shirt available for these things.
That's a lot of time invested in Doc and his antics. So my wife does not have that much time invested in Doc and his antics. So let's get back to the terrifying 25, which is much more interesting than this. Let's get back to the terrifying 25, and of the 20 required trails, what are some of the more terrifying aspects of those trails? I've heard about the ladder.
So it's, some people would argue they're not really serious. It's what it's meant to be is it's like they're the more exciting trails in the White Mountains. It's actually someone I would maybe recommend for you to reach out to and talk to on the podcast. Is the list was created by a mother and her 2 daughters. It's Trish, Alex, and Sage Hare, I believe it's pronounced. A mother and her daughters. They were completing their 48. I don't know if they finished their 48 before they started. But they basically decided, hey, some of these trails we've done as we were doing our 48, they have fun rock scrambles, or they have ladders, or they have these more interesting elements. And so they went through the AMC White Mountain guidebook and went through all the trails and talked to other people who were in the know to basically narrow down what are the more difficult or interesting trails. And that's how they made their list. They called it the Terrifying 25. And they specifically wanted trails that included, they had to have, say, like, be extremely steep, have cliffs and ledges where you're like shimmying along them, have ladders, have caves, cave squeezes, boulder scrambles, all these different things. And so each trail usually has the element, I'd say, that earns its place on the list, because if it's just a regular trail that's steep, it won't get it. But if it's steep with like stone slabs that are hard to climb, that'll get you on the list. And so when I make those videos, I usually make that the highlight of the video is, oh, this one, it's like a ladder. One of the famous ones is Mount Morgan has a ladder climb where it's a ladder next to a ladder. So halfway up the ladder, you have to shimmy sideways and transfer from one ladder to the other, like 20 feet up. And so some people say, oh, it's not hard. It's not meant to be hard. But like some people find it unnerving. I've gotten a lot of comments from people. One that's definitely not hard is, what is it? It's called Mount Percival. Its terrifying element is a cave squeeze, where you basically have to squeeze your body through the cave opening. And then you can stand up inside, and it's not a very big cave, and you squeeze out the other end. But like a lot of people have told me when they see the stuff I post, it's like, I was with you until you said caves, and then I'm out, because people are apparently really claustrophobic. And that's like part of the fun, is it's not free solo. It's not these things. And some people get mad when I call it terrifying. It's like, it's just supposed to be fun. It's a name. But some of them, especially when you film it, they are very difficult. And some of the trails, they are the hardest in New England. Some of them are, for example, in New Hampshire, I believe the hardest trail is known as Huntington Ravine. That one's on the list. It's a trail that goes up Mount Washington. You can only hike it when it's dry. You cannot descend the trail. You can only hike up the trail. These are the sort of things you might encounter. And that one I'm a little scared to film. I might film it this summer, but I've reached out to a friend to assist me, because I don't think I can do it alone, because it wouldn't be safe. And so that's the sort of thing that I have to logistically figure out. How am I going to film something that you can't descend and get the camera?
Yikes. Now, who is the creator again? It's Trish Hare. What were her daughter's names?
Trish Hare, and then her daughters are Alex and Sage. They're grown up now, but they started it, and they created the list. And I believe we've only had 200 or 300 finishers by now, but they're a really interesting family. They've done a lot of cool hiking accomplishments, and I always really want to thank them for creating the list, because it's given me so much joy, and I know it gives a lot of other people joy here in New Hampshire to challenge ourselves and try these lists and the more fun trails, I'd say, for sure.
Now, Adam, have you heard about the 6-pack of peaks?
I have heard of the 6-pack of peaks. We have them out here, because I know there's like a New England version and a New York version. I've not specifically gone for it, but I know some of the mountains I've done are part of that.
Yeah, just another challenge out there. I love the fact that people create these challenges. And I think it started in Southern California. SoCal Hiker kind of put together this challenge to hike 6 of the tallest peaks in Southern California. Mount San Jacinto, San Gorgonio, Mount Wilson, and some others. And then it's kind of exploded into for Northern California, for the Pacific Northwest, for Colorado, and evidently it's reached New England now.
Yeah, because I've seen that version. I've not specifically done all those ones, but like I personally, some people say like, oh, why don't you just hike for the love of hiking? But like sometimes it's fun to have a goal, to focus your energies. And if it's anything that inspires someone to get out there on the trail and try something new, like especially these Terrifying 25 ones, some of them are these not popular trails. And some people in New Hampshire, oh, they just hike Franconia Ridge. And that's why there's traffic jams and there's all these people. And it's nice to find a list that gets you to some of the more far-flung, less populated, less traversed trails. They are a little rougher, but that's what makes them fun and exciting.
Yeah, and I think if you finish the Terrifying 25, there should absolutely be a t-shirt. I mean, think of the ideas you
Yeah.
have for a t-shirt for that. I mean, be
Well,
awesome.
they definitely the Trish and them, they have a patch. I'm excited to get my patch when I finish. And I already know though, Doc, what my next goal is in terms of lists that I'll tackle is the Terrifying 25. It has a cousin in Maine.
Oh, really?
It's called the Wicked Wild 25.
Wow.
Where
Okay.
they did a similar thing, but for trails in Maine. And so I'm excited to explore those. I didn't even know about those until recently. And it's maybe this is a secret for your podcast listeners, because that one's even less known, I think, than the Terrifying 25. That I didn't even know about it until like February this year. And I blew my mind, and I can't wait to finally dig into it.
It's the Wacky Wild 25.
Wicked Wild.
Wicked Wild.
That's
Wicked
some New
Wild.
England slang for
That's
you
right.
there.
That's right.
Everything's wicked up here, so it's Wicked Wild.
Nice. Now, how far along are you in the Terrifying 25?
So it's interesting to say, because last year when I started it, I did videos for the all of the optionals, because I'm the guy who makes the guides. I didn't just do 5. I picked all of them because I knew I could make videos, and they've been some of my more popular videos of like, I did a video for each one individually, but then I did a video where it was like, here are the 5 easiest options. Here are the 5 hardest options. Here are my 5 favorite options, so that you could decide based on my opinion, which 5 would you do? Because not everyone needs to do all 14, but I did, so that I could tell you which ones were worth doing. And so I've done all those 14. So I think I'm like 19 out of 25, but like it's mostly all the optionals. So at the end of the day, I'll be like 32 for 25 or something. So my number will be larger. And so I'm only finally starting to dig into those core 20 right now.
Overachiever. That's your trail name.
Exactly.
Yes. Now, tell us about Krabi. Is it Krabi, Thailand?
Oh, yes.
Krabi?
That story. It's called Krabi.
Krabi. That's what I thought. Krabi. Okay.
Yeah.
Krabi, Thailand.
So it was an interesting story. That was before all of these hiking adventures. So I studied abroad in college in the country of Thailand. We were through Chulalongkorn University in Bangkok. And so that's where I spent the majority of my time. Like 90% of my study abroad was in Bangkok. But then we had a long weekend near Easter weekend, because that was around that we went from January till spring break, basically. And so there was like one long weekend we had, which I think coincided with Easter back in the States, where because we had more time, we were able to leave Bangkok and go for a longer excursion. So a bunch of me and the other students in my study abroad, we went down. Bangkok's like in the center, like, or more in the top of Thailand, and Krabi is down near Phuket in southern Thailand, near where the islands are and the ocean, and it's in that. So we flew to Krabi because I had seen it, I believe, on The Amazing Race, where I knew that there was a lot of rock climbing, and there was like this really famous beach, Riley Beach. So I wanted to go to Riley Beach. I wanted to rock climb. And so that's what we did. I convinced a bunch of the people in my study abroad, like, let's go to Krabi. And some of the other students, they went to the Phi Islands, which is just another tourist destination there. But I stayed in Krabi because I wanted to go rock climbing. So that story starts with that morning we did a half day of rock climbing. So I'm not a rock climber. I was not really in shape. And that half day, I could not physically climb anymore. I like wanted to keep climbing because we still had time, but my body was physically giving out because we had done so much climbing and I was so physically exhausted. So we ended that day there. And then me and the other guys who stuck around Krabi near the Riley Beach area, we were just going to the beach. And the way Riley Beach works in that area, there's the one beach where you land the boats on, where the rock climbing is. And then there's like a path by the, I don't know what you call them. They're these big stone outcroppings. If you've ever seen a picture of Southeast Asia, especially near the water, the Philippines or that, they're like large rocks that stick right out of the ocean, kind of. Right. And Riley Beach has a few of those sticking, like it's the beach, and then these huge rocks that like poke up. And you like walk next to one to get to the other beach on the other side of the peninsula. And so we were just going through there to go to the other beach to just relax on the beach. And as you take the path from one beach to the other, you see that there is a hiking trail that goes up the incline towards that the big rock outcropping. Excuse me. And so after we like hung on the beach a bit, it's like, hey, do you want to go and do that trail? Let's go check that out. And that one part, it's very steep on its own, and there's like a rope that helps you, and you climb up this trail there in between the two beaches, and then you hit a fork. And this is an important part of the story. There's a fork to the right. It says lagoon, and to the left it says viewpoint. And so we're like, oh, we want to see a viewpoint. Let's go hike to the left. We're going to go to the viewpoint. And so we go to the viewpoint, and it's one of the best viewpoints in all of Riley. I'll be sure to send you the picture where you get the view over the beaches and the other big stone mountains that stick up. And so we liked it. And it wasn't that far down the trail, but once we were done looking at that viewpoint, the trail kind of continued, and it looked like it was wrapping around to the right. And for whatever reason, I was with the group of other students that I was with from my study abroad. We decided, well, we still need to see the lagoon. But instead of backtracking to the fork where it said lagoon this way, they're like, oh, but the trail looks like it's wrapping around to the right, and the lagoon was to the right. What if we just keep following our trail past the viewpoint and down in there, and maybe it's a loop and we'll come to the lagoon? That is not the case. But the person who I was following in front was like, oh, the trail is heading downhill. And we were going down and down and down, and it's starting to get very steep, and it's not rocks, it's not soil, it's like a clay mud type crap. And so we're going down and down and down, and I'm like, this doesn't seem right. This is not a trail. And basically the stone structure, I think it's like a donut hole. It's like a donut. It has a center. And we hiked down into the center of the stone, huge mountain thing. And there was no lagoon there, because I think the lagoon was also in a donut hole of a separate one, because you would have taken the other trail to go to it, and they did not connect. But we had hiked like hundreds of feet down into this hole, if you want to call it. And I mean, it's like a big hole. It's not like a cave. It's like there's trees down there. It's a jungle, but like you can see the walls all around you and that you're in there. And I was pissed. Doc, I was so mad, because what did we do earlier that day? We rock climbed all day. I did not know if I could get out. I did not know if I physically would be able to exert myself to climb out, because we would have had to climb to the tree branches, the slippery mud that was getting everywhere. It was wet. It was the jungle. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, how are we going to get out? If one of us slips going first, you would slip down and hit the other people, because it was, I would not recommend it to anyone. You should not do it. It was not a trail. It's only fun to laugh at now, because we all made it out. It was all fine. But I remember just being very upset and not talking to anyone until we like got out, because I'm like, once I know I'm out, I'm okay. But like, it was, the lagoon was not there. I went back a few years later and I found the lagoon. It was definitely in a different spot, and it was also hard to get to. But like, there was like a picture of us at the end, and you just see us covered in gross clay. Like you could tell that we had just been like through some stuff to get out of there, but we were just happy to be out.
Adam, that's type 2 fun.
It was type 2 fun, literally, because I was like, I'll laugh at, like, I know we'll laugh about this when we're out, but until we're out and I know that I haven't accidentally slipped and hit 4 people and made us fall all the way back down to the bottom, I'm not having a good time. But it was fun to laugh about afterwards.
Yeah, were there human skeletons down at the bottom? I mean, that'd be a bad sign.
No, but I think there was a flip-flop. So we were at least like, okay, other people have accidentally come here before. They have left signs of human life. There's no skeletons, but they've been here, so we can hopefully escape like they did.
And there was nothing like rumbling unseen behind in the trees, like you had stumbled into some kind of lost world.
No, thankfully, no. But it was unnerving for sure, because I was like, I don't know how I'm going to get out of here. I'm so mad because I was at the beginning, I was the one following, and I'm like, how did you guys be so dumb to think this was the way? It's clearly not a trail. What are you doing? And it's just how it goes when you're in a group like that.
Now, if you're a follower, are you just as much at fault for just going with the flow?
You could maybe say that. I'm not. I guess maybe that's why I hike alone now. I don't know, because I no longer follow anyone when it comes to my hiking.
All right. Hey, speaking of Type 2 fun, tell me about Harding Icefield.
Yes, so Harding Icefield. I did that one. I did that on a trip last year with my friends Cody and Victoria. They also have a YouTube channel. They had a sponsored trip that they did, and a bunch of us, we went to Alaska, and it was a lot of fun. We went to Denali National Park and Kenai Fjords National Park, which is where the Harding Icefield is. This one was basically what my entire summer revolved around last year, because I had torn my ACL in May, and I thought I wanted to get it fixed right away. But basically talking with my doctor, I realized I would be very immobile and in the recovery period. And so basically realized, I'm like, hey, this thing's torn all the way and it doesn't hurt. I can't tear it further. Will it cause any problems if we wait to fix it till after my Alaska trip, which I had already booked I'd already booked that trip before the injury. And I realized that, and he said, oh no, like it doesn't matter. If anything, the swelling will go down more. And so basically that trip, I'm like, okay, I can go. I have my brace. I have my trekking poles. I can go on this trip. And it was not a lot of hiking focused trip, but the Harding Icefield was the one big hike of the trip. And I basically was worried that I couldn't complete it, and knew that I just had to prove to myself that I could do that. So I had my friend, we hiked one New Hampshire 4,000 footer up a terrifying 25 trail just to see if I was able to do it without an ACL, with someone helping me, to prove to myself, if I can do this, I think I can hike this one trail in Alaska. And the funniest part, and I know a bunch of people would be mad at me, it wasn't as hard as the trail in New Hampshire, because it is probably the same amount of elevation gain, but it's like a lot of gravel, and because it's a national park, there's a lot of switchbacks, and it was very doable. I was like, oh, there wasn't any roots to trip over. It was like, oh, what a lovely thing. It was kind of funny, but it was so cool getting there, because I'd never seen so much ice all in like one spot. And it was a beautiful day. We got lucky because it had been kind of in and out of the weather that whole trip, but that was probably the nicest day we had that whole trip, and that was our big hiking day, and it was really special. And the group of people I did it with were really, really cool, and I was really glad to have that experience, and that I was able to still have that experience with my ACL. It was able to handle that one hike, and then as soon as I got back from that trip, we went to surgery and got it fixed.
So, true New Englander, looking down your nose at Alaska, because you've done the New Hampshire 4,000 footers, and I think you're right. People hear 4,000 feet, and if they're from Colorado or from out west where the Sierra Nevadas are, they think 4,000 feet. That's not very high. How tough can that be? But I think you hit the nail on the head when you said that in Alaska, there's switchbacks. National Park, there's switchbacks. Not a lot of switchbacks in New Hampshire, correct?
No, and a lot of that's because the trails are so old and they were not made. I believe the reason there's so many switchbacks out west is that they were technically made with horses in mind, or mules, or pack animals.
Mm-hmm.
And like, for example, one of the trails I've done, Airline to Mount Adams, it's from 1885, and they just made it with people, and it just goes straight up the mountain. And that's why it's so as difficult as it is. And the way I would describe it, to be honest, Doc, I have nothing against any of those other mountains. It's more, I recently, especially, it's this funny thing. I make this content where I'm just trying to give people in Boston and New England ideas of places to go. But that's not how social media or YouTube or TikTok or Instagram works. It doesn't just go to those people who need to know fun places to hike in New England. It blasts it out to the entire internet. And that's when the people from the bigger mountains come and crap on New England's mountains and saying, those aren't hard. Those aren't real mountains. And I'm just the one here being like, hey, they're still good. And so in the fun, because I view it as like a fun back and forth, I adopt the persona of, our mountains are better and your mountains aren't that good. They're full of switchbacks. They're boring, blah, blah, blah. But like, I think all mountains are fun to hike. But in my current New England persona. I'm here to defend New England and like, hey, these are the mountains near where I live. They're the ones I like to hike. I wouldn't have it any other way. And if I lived in those other places, I'm sure I'd hike those just as well. But I just think it surprised me because I was like worried about Alaska because I knew, oh, their mountains are so big and this and that. I thought I would have a trouble with it without an ACL. And I was just pleasantly surprised that it ended up being easier than what I had trained on here, because I'm like, oh, there's not like, the trail is not just rocks, because like that's what all our trails are here. They're just rocks. Where's the trail? Oh, just follow the line of rocks, and like you could trip and fall and like that sort of thing, where without an ACL, navigating your legs around it, that's a little difficult. And so it was nice that they were nicely smooth and paved, and I was very happy with that. And I'm sure there's plenty of other mountains that are more difficult, but at least for that experience, it was good.
Adam, I feel like we're just scratching the surface of Adam Hoyt at this point. I've just learned that you have multiple personas. We might have to do some more episodes where, we'll devote an entire episode to each one of your personas.
Oh, that would be, I'm sure they would love that.
the personas would?
Oh, yeah, I'm sure. Yes. Each of them. I'm sure.
All right. Hey, what's next up for Adam? What's the next challenge?
So the next challenge, so one of the challenges right now is earlier this spring, I recorded a lot of footage in terms of finding the best waterfalls in Maine and in New Hampshire. So one of my challenges is just editing all that down and figuring out what those are. So hopefully they'll eventually get posted. And I thought they'd be done by now, but they're not, because it always is harder to make the stuff than you initially think. So I'm in the middle of doing that. But in terms of actual hiking, the next things for me are, I think my goal is to try and finish my Terrifying 25 this summer, like this August and September, maybe. We'll see. Depends on if the weather cooperates, because a lot of them are like, literally they can't be wet. So that it would probably be the only thing holding me back, is if the weather doesn't cooperate to give me enough clear days to do, especially the hardest ones. And then I think I might try and find some of the best, like the fall is my favorite time to hike. And I think it's a lot of people's favorite time to hike. And so I want to try and find some of the best viewpoints, I think, for the fall, or maybe I'll even finally get out to the Berkshires here in Massachusetts, because they've been on my list. And I think in a weird way, when it comes to making like hiking content and things, you always think it needs to be the big mountains. And then you realize that sometimes there are little mountains that are closer to the big cities that more people can go to, or they just want to know where to go. And so I think in the past, I've made videos for the Berkshires and not realized that like, oh, that there's an audience there that would love to know where to do in them. Just because they're not the biggest mountains, even in my region, doesn't mean they shouldn't be explored. And so I should explore them some more, and don't always have to go all the way up to New Hampshire.
Okay. Hey, Adam, you know where we are right now?
Is it the tip time?
Oh, yes. You are a frequent listener.
Hiking hacks.
The hiking hacks.
Hiking hacks. It's time for you to share some trail wisdom with our listeners to make their next outdoor experience even better. What do you have for us? I can't wait for this.
So I'm approaching this in terms of, in my mind, the audience that I my content for, and the day hikers out there, or the want to be newly day hikers. My hack, I'm gonna say it, when you boil it down, especially just in terms of day hiking, is probably a controversial opinion. I'm going to say that the gear doesn't matter, in that, in terms of not wanting to hold you back from starting your first hike. Should you necessarily hike Mount Washington in your blue jeans and your sneakers and with your high school backpack? No. Can you do it? Technically, yes. I wouldn't, as you do it more and more, you should find the gear that works for you and start working it in, especially if you want to do longer trails, more difficult trails, especially the Terrifying 25. But I'm just saying it like, if there's someone out there who they've not hiked They want to start hiking. Don't let lack of gear hold you back. A lot of times hiking is, at the end of the day, you can say it's glorified walking outside. And so don't let any of that thinking hold you back from just getting out there and experiencing your first trail, because you'll get a lot of joy out of it, like I've gone out of it. And as you get more and more into it, you can start building up your shoes to be better shoes and things like that. I've accidentally forgotten my shoes and ended up hiking a mountain out here in the East in my Vans. Not my preference, but it is doable. And like I said, this doesn't really go for through hiking and backpacking and longer term things and more extreme stuff, but like just getting out there and exploring nature, I want to say just go for it, and you can do it.
That is a great hiking hack, and I would posit that it does apply to backpacking and through hiking, because there is some really ultralight, really expensive gear out there, and if you're waiting to have the perfect kit, the perfect set of gear to go do some great stuff out there, that's the wrong way to go about it. Don't let that get in your way. Go buy some generic stuff and get out there and do it.
And that's exactly, like I said, that thing about the high school backpack, I want to say that's not a joke. I think I've hiked Mount Washington 6 or 7 times. More than majority of those was literally with my high school backpack and not with a hiking backpack. It was just, I need a backpack to hold my stuff. And like, it was the one I had and it worked. Was I sweaty and like, I wish I had more breathability? Yes. And that's why I have a hiking backpack now. And I don't have those issues, but don't let that hold you back. And it's same with like winter hiking. I try and tell that to people. It's like, I specifically pick the easiest trails. Maybe you need micro spikes, I would say, at a minimum, but like doesn't have to be Everest. You don't have to pick Everest. You can still get out there and still have an amazing time experiencing something totally new, picking the perfect weather day. Like if it's not fair weather, I don't go, and you don't have to. No one's forcing you to do that and live on that extreme, but you can still find the thing that works for you and have a good time. And that's what I would encourage everyone to do.
Outstanding. So there you have it. We're just about done here.
I do have a bonus hack for you.
There's a bonus hack. Okay, what do you have? What's the bonus?
I want to give, because my specialty is New Hampshire and hiking in New Hampshire, my bonus hack I want to give is for those who are interested in specifically hiking Mount Washington. My thing that I would say for you, if you want to hike Mount Washington, it's our tallest mountain here in New Hampshire. They say it has the worst weather in the entire United States. My hiking hack, if you want to hike Mount Washington, is you always want to look at the Mount Washington Observatory. They have a weather station up there. They publish specific weather reports for Mount Washington specifically from their website, and they like that their station is on top of the mountain. It's the most accurate weather report for that mountain, for the entire High Peaks region. That's the one I would use. If you want to hike it, you want to go the day before and like see what the weather report is before you go. And then in general, for whatever reason, well, I know what the reason is. The shape of the mountains, Mount Washington, literally, maybe not literally, but for the most part, all the time, the wind and the weather will come at you west to east, always. So if you hike a trail on the east side of the mountain, Tuckerman's Ravine or Lion's Head, you will be protected from the weather the whole way up. And as soon as you hit the ridge line, you'll hit the weather or the wind, whatever's happening. If you hike it on the west side, the Jewel Trail, Amahoosic Ravine, or trails on that side of the mountain, you'll see the weather coming at you because it goes west to east. So if you ever want to hike it and you're worried about it being your first time, that's something you can think of, is that's the way the weather comes. If bad weather is going to come at you, it's going to come at you west to east as it funnels towards Mount Washington. And that's my bonus hack for you there. If you ever want to tackle Mount Washington.
Fantastic. Mount Washington does have the worst weather in the United States. The weather can turn very bad up there. And so
yes. And as soon as you see that happening, get down.
Yeah,
I would say.
Definitely check the weather station, and love the idea about taking those east side routes up. That's
yes. Cause that you can easily, once you see it, if it's bad, you can immediately turn around and you are back out of the elements, heading back down the side that the weather's not coming towards.
Right. All right, Adam, how can our listeners keep up with you on social media, and where can they find updates on your latest adventures? We heard about Hoyt hikes, and we heard about Adam Hoyt YouTube channel.
Yes.
Any other social media?
The one that I do the YouTube a lot. I post those videos. So Adam Hoyt on YouTube, Hoyt hikes on TikTok, which hasn't, but the one that I'm biggest on at the moment is Instagram. In the Instagram Reels, I've been posting daily those, not only Terrifying 25 and other guides, but like I've been doing a lot of hiking memes, where I've been like perpetuating the feud between East Coast and Western mountains, and people have apparently been really enjoying those. And people tell me that our mountains are hills, so it's been constant fodder for coming up with new memes to poke fun at the whole situation. And so that's on Instagram at a.hoyt. It would be the handle for that.
All right. Hey, remember to check out Hiker Trash Radio on social media as well. We are on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. And if you have comments or clips you want to share, you can send it to me at hikertrashradio@gmail.com.
Off the beaten path.
Now, unfortunately, we can't always be on the trail. And when we're not, we need to find a way to get our adventure fix. So, Adam, I'm going to ask you to share some outdoor adventure media with our listeners to help them get by. This could be a book, movie, documentary. We call this segment Off the Beaten Path. We've already mentioned the Barkley Marathons. What do you have for us? Any recommendations?
Appropriate for me because I do YouTube videos for hiking. My recommendation is for a YouTube channel, and maybe you've not heard of it or your listeners. He's called GeoWizard, the GeoWizard YouTube channel. So typically what he does is his content is half and half. Half of it is pro GeoGuessr content, where he like drops into the Google Maps and figures out where he is in the world, which is not really related to this sort of thing. But the other half that he does is he does the Straight Line Mission. Have you ever heard of the Straight Line Mission, Doc?
No, I have not. What is a Straight Line Mission?
So GeoWizard pioneered this, what he calls adventure, where he begged the question, could you cross an entire country in a completely straight line? And so he has made several YouTube series where he does several episodes where he tries to cross Wales, because he's from England. So he tries to cross Wales, Scotland, Norway, and several different countries if he could do it in a completely straight line. And so there's no trails involved. It's complete bushwhacking through farms, fields. So it is outdoorsy, and it is very compelling. And I'm not going to tell anyone if he succeeds or not, but suffice it to say, he has attempted several different countries of different rates of success. And to go check that out, it's very fun seeing someone barrel their way as best as they can in a completely straight line across the country, off the trail. Off the beaten path, literally.
Off the beaten path. I've got to check that out. Does he walk through people's houses and barns? Part of
the fun is he does the work before and during, so that he picks his line deliberately to minimize that, but sometimes he has to like skirt gardens or skirt around the corners of houses or through farmers' fields and gets chased by farmers, literally. But he has a whole system. If he has to deviate, does he go from a platinum to a gold run or a silver run? Like, how straight is his line? And so it's there's a lot of nuance to it, and there's lots of twists and turns, and I highly recommend it. I find it very entertaining.
All right, that's a good one. Thank you so much.
What have we not asked you?
And Adam, before we finish up, just one more segment for you called "What Have I Not Asked You That You're Dying to Tell Us About?" What do we miss tonight?
I'm trying to see here. That hiking is, I don't know. Hiking is a lot of fun. I can't wait to explore more. I'm always dying to travel other places. Right now, New England is my home, and there's more than enough places for me to explore here. And so that's what I'm focusing on now, but I can't wait to start doing stuff for the fall, and I highly encourage everyone to come experience the peak fall foliage here in New England. It's my favorite time of year for hiking, even though the weather gets a little bit trickier, but it's always really great.
Okay. We are finished. Thank you for coming on the podcast, Adam. I don't know that we discovered a trail name for you, but we'll keep.
We'll let the listeners decide, maybe.
That's right. Call in, let us know,
or we'll let my mom listen and she can decide.
That's right. What's mom's name?
Her name is Joanne.
Joanne. Okay, and that brings us to, as we are finishing up, any shout outs to friends and family out there? Joanne, automatic shout out to Joanne.
Automatic shout out, and say hi to my dad and brother as well, and I'll say we'll give a shout out to Taylor, the New Hampshire hiker. She's my hiking friend she's one of the few people who has put up with me and hiked with me while I filmed, as she was filming her own video. And so she did the Appalachian Trail recently this year. And so shout out to her, and she's a good friend, and I like hiking with her.
Wow. You buried the lead there. You didn't tell me you knew a thru hiker.
I did. I do know a thru hiker, and but she has not gotten me through hiking yet. And I honestly, maybe that's the thing. Back to what you should ask me: will I ever go through hiking? I don't think I will. I don't think it appeals to me. I think I'll go backpacking. Maybe I do the long trail in Vermont because it'd only take me a month. But I don't think I have any desire to do.
Okay.
A 6-month trail.
I've got an idea for our next episode. You're going to put on your day hiker persona. I'm going to put on my thru hiker persona, and
you'll convince me.
We're going to battle it out. That's right. And we've talked about a lot of challenges during this episode. I don't know how many we threw out there. Just want to challenge once again our listeners, specifically Joanna and Taylor and you, Adam, to become an HTR 300er.
Yes,
300er. Start at the very beginning and work your way through. Just enjoy the evolution. Enjoy how bad it was at the very beginning, and hopefully it's gotten a little bit better over the years.
As it always should.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you for tuning in. Always remember, the trail is the trail. It doesn't care if you want to go downhill. It doesn't care if it's almost dark and you're looking for a campsite. It doesn't even care if you're on the Harding ice field with only one working ACL. The trail is the trail. Embrace the suck.